Welcome back, everyone. This is Gary Lucia, the Mars Revealer, also known as the Mad Martian. Of course, you're listening to the Martian Revelation that is upon you all again now. So let's introduce tonight's guest, Mr. Ben Crichton. And Ben Crichton is a former religious fundamentalist whose life trajectory was forever altered when he encountered the literary masterpiece Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken. Now a firm believer in the ancient astronaut theory and by association the UFO phenomena, the historian gives back to that community with the fuller picture of what probably transpired on Mars in his published book, Breakthrough on the Red Planet. Building on the framework of Dr. John Brandenburg's discoveries regarding the apparent deliberate demise of our celestial neighbor, Ben goes two steps further with contentions that he has found the culprit thereof, as well as their motive, which listeners to this show could appreciate. Dr. John Brandenburg states that two giant atomic weapons had went off in Mars's atmosphere. One, Mare Acidalium, right there near Cydonia, as well as Utopia Planitia, that helped destroy the atmosphere and the civilization that was thriving on Mars. So be sure to click that link there on the facesofmars.com page, Breakthrough on the Red Planet. And he's an astute citizen of Earth whose stunning conclusions will leave us with a message of hope, provided that we primitive Earthlings learn from the past of other non-terrestrial entities. And that sounds real interesting in itself. And so it's going to be an interesting discussion. I believe we have our guest, Ben Crichton, on. Hey, Ben, you with us, bro? How you doing tonight? Thank you very much for joining us here on the Martian.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak on your show. But before we begin, let me just say that I'm most appreciative of what you guys are trying to do here on your show in regards to the relentless pursuit of truth. And what I have to say tonight will be a complete vindication for you, especially a Martian focus, as well as all those in the UFO field. However, the same cannot be said for those who prescribe to the Judeo-Christian persuasion, unfortunately. They, on the other hand, will be faced with a crisis of faith, I believe, which I myself had to go through, in fact, when I first discovered this breakthrough. And so I know firsthand how devastating this will be. And yeah, so let's go from there.
Yes, indeed. And again, is that how you pronounce your name, Crichton?
It's Creighton, yeah.
Oh, Creighton.
I've heard a lot. I've heard Cretan, you know.
Well, it's better than Cretan, yeah. But yeah, Creighton. All right. Or
yeah,
Creighton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize about the name misspell on image. That'll be fixed for the archive, though.
Hey,
So
no worries. I'm not concerned.
Like I said, it's not Cretan, no. You got lucked out.
Yeah, I had a little chuckle when somebody said that.
So, now. So, all right.
So do we begin from the top of my story?
Well, yeah, let's begin at the top. Again, it's you're a former religious fundamentalist. Now, what do you mean by that? Because in this work, believe it or not, I'm a Christian. I believe in the blood to save, that I'm saved, etc. It's a personal thing, a blood contract, all that, and what he did, who he is, blah, blah, blah. Now, faced with these issues, pun intended, it's kind of weird coming from the standpoint of a Christian, because one would not expect a Christian to be looking at these or to ask the obvious questions and even more bizarre questions of where all this leads, as if somehow it challenges what I believe in my faith. If anything, it inspires my faith more, because it makes it more real, and nothing that disproves the scripture. You see his handiwork in the heavens, and then some. We're dealing with handiwork in the heavens and then some. So now, what do you mean from your position of a former religious fundamentalist? What is that, like Catholic, or were you in a particular denomination? Because Christians I have encountered amongst my so-called brothers and sisters, only when it's convenient. But anyway, how they would look at these issues and not want to look at the issues. They're more comfortable with the turtleneck, snail pace feed policy of looking for possible signs of life, even though it's already detected, and seeing visually of their archaeological interesting features on the landscapes. They'd rather obfuscate and ignore that because somehow they feel threatened, is my estimation of being in that. Now, that being said, boom, again, what do you mean as a former religious fundamentalist? I'll shut up.
No problem. So I was raised for the better part of my first 19 years in a religious household, and it was we went to church and all that stuff, and I basically adopted whatever my parents' beliefs were pertaining to the subject of spirituality. They are very spiritual, by the way, and they still are. I actually haven't told them about my book, so I think it may devastate them a little more than it has you. So
what about Mars? Mars?
No, that I have published this book and I am moving forward with or without it.
You should let them know. I mean, it brings up healthy discussion. Again, and it shouldn't challenge the faith. If you study that Bible, there's plenty of things that refer to off-world.
Well, let me just say it challenged mine, and it shattered mine, actually. So what I mean by fundamentalists is they're very strict in the religious pursuit. So, like, we would go to church every Sunday and pray before every meal and stuff like that.
Okay.
But everything changed for me in my second year of university. I met a close friend from first year who recommended this book by Eric von Daniken. And I at first, scoffed and laughed at him. I was like, what are you, I have everything I need in the scriptures. And I'm saying, Gary, I have been where you are. And this is my story of how I came around to the UFO phenomenon and then eventually this tragedy on Mars. So, yeah, back to the story with my friend here. Mm-hmm. I decided I'm a very open-minded person. I've always been that way. I'm not sure how that came about out of a religious fundamentalist household, but nevertheless, I am a pretty.
First, use your brain, and God helps you use your brain. All right, and He's leading us to these things, in my opinion. But go ahead, sir.
Right. So I was like, okay, I'll sign it. I'll sign out a copy. I didn't think anything would come of it, to be honest with you. So I finished the book in like a day or two, and I was pretty stunned by it, actually. And the most resonating aspect of von Daniken's theory for me wasn't so much the evidence presented, which,
really?
Yes, which were plagued with inaccuracies, which I Googled and stuff. But the theory itself, that all our world's religions are the result of ancient contacts between advanced alien beings who claim to be gods, or we outright believe them. And suddenly it made perfect sense that these beings from outer space could perform technological feats far beyond our wildest dreams. And this would be what's that?
Ezekiel is a great example in Scripture of that fact. If it is the Creator that was actually on board of that, it just shows, well, if he's riding around that, it's not far-fetched that the others out there have these similar type technologies.
It would be mind-blowing, their technology. They would be many, many years ahead of ours. And
but the people of that fundamentalist type definition, those are things that they should consider.
Yes, I think they're missing the boat on this if they don't at least read the book, if not take it, outright believe it. So, I'm not going to quote. I go into more detail in my book.
Did I
quote
read that book, by the
extensively.
way? Did I read that book? Did you send it to me once?
I did send it to you as
All right,
a
then I think I read it. It's like
PDF.
50. It's like 52 pages. I
Yeah,
believe I read it then.
50 pages. Yeah.
And it brings to the heart of the Martian revelation the concepts of the revelation.
Yes,
And
that we're not alone, and
oh,
there are beings out there who are far more powerful than we are.
indeed, and in my opinion, it didn't discount King Holy Be Jesus and what's going on with that in Scripture. At least not by my interpretation of what I was reading.
I believe that we can explain almost every miracle now that the God in the Bible has done. For example, you look at the one of the biggest ones, other than the resurrection, of course, is the tale or the event in Exodus where he parted the waters. I
Right.
believe that he had some sort of anti-gravity technology that could control water and push it aside. It's like everything starts to make sense when you bring in the UF or Eric von Daniken's theory, ancient astronauts, that we've been visited, and these stories in the Bible are the result of that visitation. I mean,
Right.
it's stunning, but everything starts to make sense. It's crazy, and I believe
Right.
he was operating the entity that we call God in the Bible, was operating a modern day equivalent UFO. It's
That's right.
and then the Holy Bible, and I go to this at length in my book as well, could be retitled the Alien Agenda. Right there.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And there's a lot in the alien agenda, and then you got the two sides at war with each other.
Yes, there
that
is a war going on.
And the war of the heavens of what the evidence is that some whoop-de-doos happen in our solar system that indicate warfare, and especially Dr. John Brandenburg's Revelations, Martian
Yes.
Revelation.
And we'll get into that in more
weapons.
detail in a minute.
Oh, definitely. Oh, we got all show to do.
Oh, yeah.
So this is incredible. But along these lines is what it's got to affect us from whether it's Christianity or even other faiths. It's that type of revelation to connect and conceive about, because there are interdimensional beings. The Bible describes them, spiritual realms, the technologies. The old cosmic wars. What happened here in the past between so-called Satan, the individual Lucifer, whatever his name you want to prefer him, the one who screwed and wants to screw us all, and we're just living throughout the timelines of, I think, us coming to more of the realizations of that reality, because all the more now, especially how we see how easy our nation could fall, we could really attribute to what it describes in Daniel and elsewhere in Revelations on the type of days, how those scriptures, that still seems so far away from us.
Well, I think things could rapidly go that direction. For the record, I have zero interest in seeing the Book of Revelation come to fruition on this planet.
Wow.
Like when you realize, and I'm putting that out there for the record, I have zero interest in seeing a quarter or a third of the world's population be killed as a result of these alien wars.
Well,
I'm putting that out there right now.
Right, I hear you. But if they are the mixed seed, mixed breeds, wheat and the chaff, it's to be expected. It makes sense in that sense, to where.
But is it inevitable?
So scared, if anything, it just makes you ask more questions and want to know the answers, try to alleviate the fears, because the more we learn and the more we know, well, maybe the opposite, we could, we could feel more comfortable and understanding and dealing with these issues that apply, because again, we're talking about a planet over, all right, and which is basis on your book there, following up of Dr. John Brandenburg's discoveries, as well as Eric von Daniken's, and more so than the evidence, really, of even the Nazca lines and various structures and bricks, and that even beyond that, huh? That's
But
incredible.
he's not perfect in his evidence, and I
Right.
put a link in the books to a Wikipedia article which goes into more detail of the drawbacks of his evidence that he provides in his book. But back to my story. So after I had read it, I began to reread the scriptures in an entirely different light, you know. And not only that, but the holy word would no longer be taken for granted in such high esteem again. I mean, I'm just telling the way it is, man. I have changed in my religious
I can
views.
see why, but I can't see why. This would turn more into a spiritually personal discussion about that. I mean, that's interesting in itself. You know, because there would be others. I know a pastor. Damn, I wish he was on this show right now with you. That I still want to get him on, and maybe you could appreciate it too from his standpoint on what happened here before humans' creation, as well as in the heavens on Mars and in the solar system. It matches where the sciences have been going with certain people in this series of our studies here, right? And his claim and position from a Christian Baptist, point of view is, it kind of brings you to the realms of Chuck Missler, if you're familiar with him, and the things he used to talk about as he's passed now regarding the UFOs and who and what they're really from. I mean, we're seeing both sides. And in the scriptures, I'm seeing that too. So again, that's what I mean by not so much an argumentative discussion, but a debated one. That's very interesting. That's why I would like him to chime in on that. And maybe one day we will. Maybe I'll try to set that show up with him.
Charles Missler, right? Does he have a book?
Chuck Missler is passed, but the one I would like to bring
does he have a book?
John S. Terrell. John S. Terrell of the Resurrection of Light Jesus Church out there in California. He's did a lot of sermons and about this and research into these fields, and especially come from a scriptural point of view of what the UFOs are. And he's not the first that has stated such things. And all of that could certainly be possible. Remember, scriptures, it says 30% of the cosmos sided with the enemy. I mean, so when you look up everything that you see up there, 100% of the sky, just pick out chunks to take out 30%. That much sided with the enemy. And if there are other civilizations, again, like the news tonight, you put two and two together. They don't all have to be of flesh and blood. And or they come in many forms. But one thing we know, they seem to use very highly advanced means of transportation in the least of the word. So that's why from a Christian point of view, to me, it didn't challenge my faith. It helped enable it to make us stronger, to learn more about how what I was reading I was supposed to take as being true. And you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of things there of why the things are off-world, other civilizations. Well, until someone hits them in the face, even then, they want a president or someone to come out and acknowledge it. Like, hopefully Trump does in the next couple of year or two, about finding, quote unquote, a dead civilization on Mars. I mean,
it's nice.
Well, it would, because it's going to affect all religions, all faiths.
It's going to be a planetary phenomenon.
It'll be a Martian revelation that we're making off.
Yes, and we're doing it right now. Like, we are jumping the gun here.
Yes.
Our listeners, whoever's listening right now, you are getting the full disclosure right now, tonight.
Indeed.
The day's done.
And they're learning. Many are waking up more to the reality, and many of these listeners here are woke, and they know I'm here for a reason. So, and
yes, you guys are doing a spectacular job. Like, you've been doing it this way. I was probably in diapers when you guys were doing this.
Hopefully I'm not that old, but I've been around for a minute and then disappeared and then back through time.
Well, I know John Brandenburg's, he's pushing what, 65?
Yeah,
So,
he's been on my show since the early beginning days.
yeah,
The early
he's been at it a long time. You guys are veterans.
well, especially them. We are.
Yeah.
I'm just a primitive
But
trying
you know
to
what? We're gonna have to carry their
beat
torch.
my way through the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get the
Anyway, let's get back to my story here. So I started rereading the scriptures, and then I came across one that was like, a WTF moment, and I put that in the book too. So I'll just read it here. It's found in Second Peter, chapter 3, verse 10. And it says that the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burnt up. So, I was now,
what makes planets do
how
that?
how Eric Von Daniken put this into my mind is, wow, an alien wants to destroy our planet. So,
Ultimately,
this is where Dr. John
exactly.
Brandenburg's work comes into play now.
Mhm.
Because it almost sounds exactly like what happened on Mars. And I was listening to one of his, and this is when I first was introduced to his thing, was an interview online with, I forget his name, but it's in the book. The Dark City radio host, Steve Warner, that's who it was. And it's almost word for word what John says happened on Mars. And I'm going to quote him verbatim, so there's no doubt about it here. And it says, he said, its explosion, this is regarding those 2 hydrogen bombs the size of the Empire State Building. Their explosion would have absolutely devastated the entire planet. It would have ripped off most of the atmosphere and spread radioactive debris all over the entire planet, which would have killed all life. And what does that sound like in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10? That's a rhetorical question, by the way.
Oh.
Exactly what we found on Mars.
Gotcha, right.
There it is. There's your culprit.
Being destroyed. So you're saying that the God of the Bible is the culprit of destroying those on Mars. That's interesting because I believe
so, yes.
All right, because I've been following a weird Twilight Zone code down through time through the UFO diaries. And though there's other videos detailing of even using some of the same scripts, some changed differently and whatnot as the years continue. In it, they had David Flynn. David Flynn is now deceased, but he used to talk about the stones of fire and how Satan and the angels and the fallen angels were the ones who are on Mars, and that God destroyed them for their rebellion against them, that they made the monuments to honor their God, their creator, but they rebelled against God, their creator, and so God, their creator, basically destroyed the place. So, and that's again this weird code. I'm looking for puzzle pieces, but it was only through the later years when that was thrown in at a time to when, well, where the better images were coming in, we're seeing these pyramidal structures, a face, and let alone the other faces that we're trying to be given.
And we're going to get into some Martian architecture later on in the show that isn't obvious, but it's there,
Awesome. And you know what? Oh, yeah, I believe we may be able to do video for that if you want, if you know how to share screen and stuff on here.
No, I don't, but we'll give them the link and they can check it out for themselves.
All right. Well, all right.
We'll get into that later, Gary.
All right. All right. So, now where was I? Oh, yeah. So back to the religious aspects of, that potential connection. I mean, that's just rings as a connection to what you just described as from another source that I'm yet trying to figure out, because they gave us information. So with that new information being put in there years later, even though everything connects back to the first one, to the one that I found, I know it's crazy. I'm crazy, they say, but just...
You're not crazy, man. You're far along the trail than most that I know of anyway.
Well, it does bring a sense in the scene. It's close to our planet, a war in the heavens, and we've heard that. Damn it. Damn Moors. What is this with the Moors? But anyway, that threw me off, damn it.
Ours is our warning shot across the bow. That's what it is.
Yes, and from the threats coming from deep space, whether it's the God, the creator, or 30% of his enemies out there. The story,
right? And let me just say,
more input. Johnny 5, more input. Input. Give me more input, and I'm thirsty for it. And I believe that we were meant to see this. We're meant to know this, and we have to adapt to it. Because
well, it could be the other way, that he thinks he's so far, powerful than we are, that who cares if the little humans know? They can't do anything about it.
Well, he cares. At least about certain ones.
Well, if he cared, why set this guy loose? I mean, apparently Satan runs the entire planet right now. Why would a good God hand over control of an entire planet?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Could answer that. It could, once if you listen to Pastor Terrell, he lays it out, and I've studied it many times just to make sure what I'm hearing is correct and following along. And you're like, well, remember, there was a trial. And what happens in a trial? You get the call, make accusations, and, get to have your chance to make or break your case, right? So part of that is part of all this. We just happen to fall in, well, into the storyline of how he laid it out, I guess. I mean, by that, or where it's going, since we have a prophetic sense, if we're to take that into consideration somewhere in all this madness of...
Like a sixth sense, you mean?
It's interesting but still, again, there's always that question. I'm not saying that's the only solution, but from a scripturally Christian point of mind, I have that on the puzzle board. But what if there's data there that says or shows otherwise? And that threat, whether it's the same individual as in Ezekiel was being described as off-world powers that have these capabilities, obviously, and that may be more than one.
Yeah.
See? Just a little more thinking to add, whether it sounds ridiculous or not.
Hey, I'm willing to entertain anything. I've even listened to that flat earthers.
Well, to some degree, there's reasons for that too, and we will get into that on this show. Not that I'm a believer, but I believe that prospect and part of that story also comes from those so-called gods, those from the heavens that came, the Anunnaki that told the Sumerians things of Tiamat. Some of that flat Earth would kind of make sense in some ways.
Have you read Zachariah Sitchin's work at all?
Oh, all of them.
Oh.
I have had most of them, but I lend them out, and I never get them back.
Yeah, I know. That's why you always give them the link or whatever to go buy the book themselves.
Right, or a PDF somewhere or something, God. But anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, and especially what got my interest into that was my reading and understanding and learning of the scriptures, and the whoop-de-doo that puts on that, and then it's like, you got to adjust somewhere. Do you lose your faith over it, or do you weigh things with salt and wait to see the outcomes later on?
I threw it away.
Well, yeah, you already made that plunge.
Yeah.
And who knows? When the days come. Everything's for a reason. And
I'm open to returning. Until I get answers though that are satisfactory to me. I don't think I could ever go back once the stuff I know now, it'd be like a demotion. But you know what? I'm not here to knock your faith or anything like that.
No, that's cool. I appreciate that, and believe me, but that's the things that. The subjects that gets covered on this show. It's not just about me, it's about us all.
Right. And we're all in this boat together.
Exactly. And especially in regards to this, because we all have to face it, pun intended, because they're all up there staring at us in the faces. watching us as we come and land, eye following them because of the way it's carved. But no, NASA don't want to show you enough of that because they see it, and I know they do. But anyway,
But
so
try and put yourself in the government's position. Imagine facing an alien threat and not being able to do anything about it. Like, how would you tell people that? They would just be totally devastated.
well, that's why, based on Brookings, they've been doing that through the science fiction shows,
And
even
it's
before Brookings, up till now, acclimating us to all these different various type of technology, hypothetical or new things we start seeing that kind of matches. You know, they're getting us up to a point of where now I believe we're at a point we have to be told. And
I
acclimated,
agree with that.
you know.
And I
So-
go with that. I go about that in the book as well. That we have a need to know this, and if we don't, off this bunker up.
That's true. And alive, in fact. You know what I mean?
Yes, and
If we don't get off alive, you know, maybe they'll be snuffed up in caches for some alien race to, you know, scoop us up and leave on the ground and figure out to take forever to come pick them up and bring them home instead of sending someone to investigate. Sound familiar?
But I can tell you one thing though, is that this being, wherever it comes from, does not want us to go venture out into the heavens. I'll tell you that right now, because I don't see anything in the scriptures about us going to Mars or us going to the moon or anything like that. I just see his agenda and his will, and that's it.
There is one part that does hint at it somewhere. I forget where, but I've already.
You gotta send it to me because I don't see it.
It's about his hand will be able to even reach into the heavens, though some may leave the earth, not in those exact words, but that's the gist. He'll be
it could
able
be
to
a spiritual thing too, right? That would be that what do they call it? Remote viewing.
and bring them back. He'll bring them back to the earth. That there'll be no escape, you know, basically from him. And you know, and that's all got to do with the mountains too collapsing in on people, and you know,
It's not a very enlightening.
you know, you know, but there is a war, and that, you know,
Yes.
so there is an enemy. So, and Ronald Reagan and others have, especially Reagan, has spoken about it often, trying to let us know the alien presence, the alien force is already amongst us. This alien threat from outer space. You know,
It could be threats, multiple.
Oh, multiple, yes. Plus, they could be here now amongst us. Yeah, see, there's a difference. Is
This is where you bring in the interdimensional aspect, where they can actually possess human bodies and like. Then you get into the David Icke stuff. Wow.
Not only that, General Mark Milley in 2016 to a group of cadets, graduates, cadets, and officers. Remember now, in 2019 or early 2020.
Yeah, he said something about green men, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and now he's the joint the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? And this same guy in 2016 that said that they were going to be dealing with hybrid armies and little green men. Now, crickets.
If that doesn't scream disclosure, I don't know what else will.
Exactly, especially when the question times come. Oh, how was your life? What got you involved in all this? Never mind. Hey, did you meet any little green men who would tell me more about these hybrid armies? And I was told basically they were all probably briefed and told not to answer those questions.
Yeah, I don't think it was an interview. I think it was just a speech to some.
No, he was deadly. No, he was deadly serious.
No, I know he was serious, but I don't think it was like reporters were there that could ask him interviews, right? Because that would be the obvious logical.
I meant the cadets and officers.
Yeah.
Because when he was done with the speech, they would ask, right, any questions? You know, the military guys, the brass would ask them, and you know, they would, tell us about, you know, how you got in, like, ever put everyone to sleep. You know, yeah, it's nice to have you on it, but I'd be like, dude,
and by the way, here's this green men stuff.
Tell us more about these green men and what's about the different army. You know, I mean, you know, what am I signing up for? You know, so maybe they were already briefed. And now he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Now, it's not far-fetched, and especially by considering Dana Rohrabacher's attempt, which was more like made into more like what do you call that? A satirical skit when he asked those Congress people about finding it's finding a civilization on Mars thousands of years old, and they bitch at him saying no, millions of years old, and we have no evidence that any such civilization.
I know, I saw that. Oh, it's almost laughable. But
because they focused on scalding him for the amount of years before there's no said civilization, no evidence, So then why bitch about the years?
Yeah.
The giveaway, see what I mean? So now whether we're dealing with extraterrestrials, pre-Adamic, even maybe pre-Earthen, for all we know.
Hey, pre-universe. I believe if the interdimensional hypothesis is correct, and I believe it is, we are dealing with entities that come from other universes that are interacting with us here. And they would obviously have space technology, but it goes beyond that. It goes way beyond that. We're talking about David Icke stuff now, where they can inhabit bodies.
And
we're vessels.
Yep. And then and therefore the capabilities of, like, even Zechariah Sitchin's the Lost Book of Enki describes.
I love that book.
With their beams, they carved into the surface a giant face. All right. I mean, then you get concepts of that, of doing entire planetary hemispheres of that type of technology. Was it the Anunnaki, or did the Anunnaki just have a piece of what these interdimensionalists and others already have and utilize out there?
Well, the Anunnaki speak in that book. They speak of a creator of all that was even beyond there. So it's almost like the gods have gods. And I mean, who knows where this rabbit trail actually goes, but I believe they came from other universes, the ultimate source.
That's true. And then the God of gods would be able to maneuver through all of them as well, it seems. And there is one possibility that the true God showed up and they hauled ass. Or were locked in somewhere deep below the earth. If that could also be attributed because of what the information scripturally, as well as from the Anunnaki tales, tell us. Wow, there's some similarity there that brings the question as well. And yeah, well, yeah.
I really hope that doesn't exist.
or Tartarus, with fallen angels. That did the deal in the Book of Enoch. Those ones. And they came down, took wives from whom amongst they chose.
But the Igigi, wasn't it? Or
yeah, Igigi, but you had all the Igigi came later. Those, but these were
right. They were slaves before us.
Well, right there, they're space slaves. They're EBs. They're extraterrestrial biological entities. All right, maybe those are the little green men with the big eyes that are most known. I don't know, but I do know that there's a correlation between those Anunnaki and those so-called fallen angels, because they both did the same thing as which they were charged by the God of gods, as it was the capital G, like
the creator of all. It's called in the book. I think.
Right. Therefore, if these guys are some of them locked in Tartarus, maybe some say in South Antarctica, buried, in the earth. You've had similar movies. I think, what was that one? Damn it! It's right on the tip of my tongue. Not 300, but it was around that time frame a movie was made. Damn it! The name escapes me at the moment. But he goes and they see them. They're all got like these damn pikes going through their faces and shit like that. They're trapped. They want to get out, but there's no way out, according to Enoch, right? I mean, so and he was taken off the earth, living where he returned. His son was older than him, and then he left the earth for good. How? Ezekiel style.
Abducted by aliens.
Taken by the Lord, the God of gods, supposedly, or it seemed like a deal.
Well,
like
in a
that.
chariot. Well, like Elisha, or was it Elijah?
Exactly, Elijah. Yeah.
Right, taken up into the clouds through it by a chariot.
Indeed.
It makes Eric Von Daniken's theory. It makes so much more sense. than anything else I've heard. But
It's
the
there are things
interesting thing is this creator of all aspects.
Indeed. Well, that's the thing. That's where the path is leading, and that's why this show is an important part of that, because that's going to be helped revealed too once we reach the Martian revelation.
We should actually get on to Mars here pretty quick.
Indeed. Oh well, we still have another, but yeah, I hear you. So okay,
well, we want to take calls too, right?
Well, or questions. Yeah, well, I will blow off the cobwebs off of that. It's late at night, but anyway, we get a lot of the times a lot of just questions that get messaged into us from various places. That seems to work faster too, to believe it or not.
No, I don't care where they come from.
All right, so you haven't really showed your parents or obviously other people and like that
I
about
showed my close friends and stuff. They're supportive, but yeah, no, my parents are just.
So what do they think? Never alone of where you bring it, of at least what is known about nukes, ancient civilizations on Mars by visual NASA photographic evidence, and others, ESA, we can say now. So just in that alone, what is their opinion? And then how do they handle it more so once you go on to them?
The only about the, as far as I would go, or I did go with them, is the ancient astronaut theory, and then Zecharia Sitchin. That's about where we kind of ended things.
Oh, you never showed them, jumped them to Mars then?
No, I never showed them John Brandenburg's work or anything like that. They're fundamentalists, right? So they got the blinders on. They don't even enter.
See, that would be a great experiment. I would love you to do that, an experiment. Then you could come on this, you could show. No, feel me. And it's very important because that's a good study for the listeners. I think they'd be interested in, because then they could see the effects of people, how they either transition or adapt, or how they melt away from it. And overall, we could build up a case file of various sources and see if indeed Brookings is even still correct.
I think for 90 or 80 to 90% of the population, it is correct. And that's one of the reasons why I believe disclosure will be a grassroots phenomenon. It'll be either like a person actually recording video, which has already been done in multiple times, but or some physical proof, right? Like a part of a spacecraft or something. So it's not going to come from our government. I'm sorry. We have to move on, and just it's going to be from you and me, people like you and me, and John.
Oh, indeed.
Richard.
And if it comes from the government, it'll come in the forms of which it has been part of my life through crazy Twilight Zone codes down through time, because disclosure was told by Hoagland. He's a big part of this, believe it or not. Who said that disclosure would never come the way we think. And he was right on that. It would come in the crazy ways of what I am bringing forth, and fulfilling that model he in fact describes. Yet I'm crazy. None should listen or see. But yet no one answers. He doesn't want to answer about it. That's because he can't. Not until it's safe to be seen. Once enough people have their consciousnesses changed to grasp it, and then still want to know more about it, society ain't breaking down, then he and or representing the powers that be would be safe enough to reveal it. But how do you get the people to reveal it unless by first you give them a test? And if they fail the test that they're not even intelligent enough to grasp, how will they be intelligent enough to be capable of carrying on life, knowing and having access to these images / disclosures and information, unless you pass certain tests? That UFO Diaries is one said test.
I really hope Richard comes around on this one, because he has done so much for the UFO field, and to have him stagnate it now is just, it's so sad. It's so sad.
He's stagnated now because I need to help change people's consciousness, because on the fulfillment of his secret work, what his real validation and vindication would come from is after I'm able to succeed to help you people see it, so it creates critical mass and it's becomes safe to be seen, then he can come out and officially acknowledge it himself. And that's been part of the plan.
And that's along with the rest of the people in the government too.
And the things he said over the years, what people, whether he's talking about something on the surface of a comet or Iapetus, or no matter what it is, it's always coded. Leading back underneath, he always says, there's an underlying storyline. It's like you have to weave your way through the matrix. Like you flip the Rubik's Cube and you flip the last piece and it all makes sense. It's the words, it's in the scripts. He's scripted their treasures, the riches, the treasures over the landscapes of various, strewn about here and there, and everything that he was to do, and select others out there in the world that would connect to it later if you're smart enough to follow the breadcrumbs, start getting the big picture conversation. Because how do you talk to each other about it? If one guy has a piece of this information, another guy has a piece of this other information, et cetera, et cetera. How do you talk about it with each other? Because of all the things that keep you from speaking, wink, wink. How do you talk about it with each other without going to Leavenworth? Answer, he says, you use codes. Yeah. I have a working model of that shows that if I'm right, he's right. And if he's right, I'm right. But the only way that could be shown is by more people's consciousnesses being changed to that fact to test their intelligence, not just mine, because that's the first hurdle. It's all riddled. It was filmed in a Masonic lodge. All spooky crap attributed to this that we're to utilize down through time, purposed to be brought forth down through time to test us all and to make the demand and make it safe for him. To then, all of a sudden, here you go, open a damn briefcase, whip them out. By the way, now we go and write the book, The Heritage of Mars, Remembering Forever. Isn't that right, Mr. Hoagland? And that would be where your legacy really comes into play. You'd be validated, vindicated, and so would I. But at least I would be able to write this book right. You once said to me, this must be done right. Indeed, it's going to be done right. And that's in order to do that right. You get it? So now that aside, that has the help and implications of being aided to be part of that plan. That this craziness I'm describing was aided with them by, they call themselves the Martians. Right. They had messages. Now hear me out.
All right.
Now, that made sense because to me, this should be impossible by all human standards. Even when, he had me studying this and he directly connected to it, I kept studying it. And I was like, it said things about me in my life no one could possibly knew. And it was like a conversation without hearing voices. But this is how worlds communicate, it said. It described itself. And they described themselves as being the Martians. And therefore, I started thinking, well, okay, I could possibly throw Satan out the window. Hairs on my neck are still up, but okay, that makes sense because this should be impossible. But yet, here I have something, and obviously a weird communication going on. That's how worlds communicate.
Right. Is it your turn or mine? Hello?
I realize.
Sorry, you cut out for a minute there. What were you saying?
Using my realize to realize of the reality that it is true, it is real, because they are not of this earth. They have a higher technology. Therefore, like Hoagland always says, how
Hello?
Because I would, damn, this thing's starting to piss me off.
Yeah, it keeps cutting in and out.
Yeah, because I don't like what I'm saying, because I'm honing it down, because this is the reality. I'm on a roll for a minute, but it's relevant, my friend. Just hear me out for another minute.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Get it out of your system.
Exactly. So this code that I'm seeing, it was meant to be brought forth, meant to be seen, meant to be figured out, and therefore, okay. And then it makes me ask, how are you able to do this? If this is real and I'm following you, I'm getting answers, even to my questions, not very long from at this point, where I would be at in this conversation, as it was turning out to look like a conversation, which should be, again, impossible, unless there's some type of time device. I said, who has the crystal ball? Therefore, is it saying, or is it some other world technology, since they're describing themselves as the Martians, and that they were working with these Masons to help bring this test out down through time to see if we'd even can figure this out or not figure it out. Hoagland attributed to it in code as being the Kobayashi Maru. What's the Kobayashi Maru? Did you see Star Trek, the new Star Trek movies? I don't know if it was the first one or In the Darkness, where he's sitting in the captain's chair. Spock made the Kobayashi Maru. They're all in there in a simulation. Kirk cheats. And what does he have as he wins? He bites an apple. He bites an apple. Now, mind you, this Kobayashi Maru. But Spock was mad, and he was called a green-blooded alien. It got a little racial in there and that tension in that room. But Spock was pissed, showing his emotions, you know what I mean? Being part human, know what I mean? Being a hybrid. Know what I mean? Nah. And then Kirk's biting the apple. He wins the chess by cheating. But I didn't cheat. In what I'm doing, I use various aspects to change my thinking, to use that to bring forth the answer or the identity of who is communicating with me. And it worked. And it worked. And they claim they're the Martians. They had a message that it ain't them. And I brought this forth to, many listeners and L&M and all them and everywhere else. I've yelled and screamed. I mentioned this first day one. They had a message. One, it ain't them that's hiding the truth about them on and under the surface of Mars. Two, it is forces here working on Earth, working to prevent us from knowing about them. And here's three. You guys are spending millions and billions of your Earth dollars, American currency dollars, basically, on radio telescopes looking for messages from intelligent life.
It's all right here. It's in almost every home and every hotel.
Not only that, in me and what I'm doing as the communication that I have to help people to adjust to, here is part of our proof that we were able to get a message by these and down to the Earth and broadcasted without your radio astronomy telescopes. Therefore, I am part of their technology as well, because I have been seen and scripted into this before I even gave a shit about Mars. But it connected things into my life, things to my mother. It deals with UFOs, for the lack of a better term. It deals with them coming into her womb when I was being followed. Other experiences through my life. Even on her deathbed, she tells me more. How did this code know of certain things in my life that only happened to me? And yet it wanted me to tell me of a secret intelligence, what was really going on between NASA and the Soviets, and how we got the original face of Mars really out to us, and who's responsible. Mr. Hoagland, have you ever been to Moscow? You see people, how that ties together. Where did I get that information? Out of my ass? Being stoned? Yeah, I was stoned, but that's because my mind had to tune in. Being taught a Swahili code down through time from another world, because I'm told and described that's how worlds communicate.
Well, are you familiar with...
What's the source? The Martians would make the most sense. They'd have the different technology. They're there now on Mars. They know now at a time when I was to bring this forth and all that, they already have plans for marching to Mars and dealing with any subsurface illegals and or the threats coming from deep space, which brings up the questions about what Ben Creighton here is alluding to, of these bombs and who may have done it. The problem is we have to figure out the who. We kind of understand the what's. We kind of get the gist, but we really have to learn and hone down to who, because when the time comes, we have to be on the right side.
We also have to know why, too. Actually, we haven't even dealt with the why yet.
Exactly. This is where we're at, and we will get into why. I think we should go to a break first.
All right.
But before we do, are you totally faith gone, or is it like just open that's what I don't understand. Faith gone, because to me it opens it all up to like holy crap, what it must be like and what I've experienced, dude, it's scary. On the other hand, it's not. I just learned I know what a soul was
Well,
because
it's not just this Mars stuff.
Right.
It's a whole philosophical thing. Like, have you ever heard of the dystheism position?
no.
Or God
Describe everything.
exists, but he's not necessarily wholly good. That's where I'm at right now.
Ah,
So, and if we could get into that at the end
too.
of the other side of the break, I mean, what?
Yeah,
it
that'd
doesn't-
be good. That's a good place to pick off because then you could get into the situations of the wars and who they were and what it, describe what you need to describe and what you believe is going on and what obviously may still happen here on the earth. So if you're cool with that, let's go to a break and we should be back. I don't know, in maybe 7 minutes. I gotta go check my dogs and do something real quick.
All right, sounds good, Gary.
All right, people. So listeners, again, these topics, they go into various dimensions and various dimensions of human aspects of culture and who we are. So if you're offended, I don't know what to tell you because no matter what, it's still going to affect you too, whether you choose to ignore it, put your head up the ass or an ostrich head in the sand. It's not going to make a difference other than the reality that we need to learn to face.
The problem's not going to go away.
Exactly.
Either we're ready or we're not.
I believe, well, we have to be, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's right.
Ready or not, here we come. So on that note, the listeners know, the motto here, pack them and smoke them, because you're definitely still going to need them when we come back on a Martian Revelation.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.